Hi, welcome back. I'm about to climb on this ladder. Now, why would I be doing that? So why would I need to climb on a ladder? I don't have extremely tall trees. I don't have great big hedges that need trimming. But I do have a new expanded backyard raised bed garden. And I wanted to get a bird's eye view and share that with all of you. So let's go take a look. So before I go up close and personal and show you what's going on in each of the beds back here, I thought it would be nice to see an overview, a bird's eye view, if you will. So I guess you could say this is the big reveal. This is the gravel completely installed. I am shooting this little intro portion after I did the version where I was down on the ground. So we've moved our patio table in there. I've moved my big obelisk, which does indeed look a little too crowded for me. So I don't think that's going to stay there. Was a great idea. And then here are the beds. And I can't say how happy I am with this. It's turned out every bit as well as I hoped it would. In fact, it actually looks better than I could have envisioned it, because I simply couldn't envision it. So I'm going to try to splice in some of the footage that I took on a ladder when it was mid-project. I don't think I had any footage that I shot whenever it wasn't started yet. But this is it. So happy with this. Of course, there's still a lot to do. I've got many things that are not yet planted. There's a lot of decisions to be made, but this is what it looks like. So here are the original raised beds. This first one has scarlet runner beans and sunset runner beans. I'm really in love with the color on the sunset runner beans. This will be the first year that I actually have these and producing fruit. I did plant them last year and they never gave me anything. So these are either self-seeded, or if they're perennial, they've just come up again. But I'm pretty excited because I didn't have to sow that section. And then I have a variety of other beans here in the front along the edge here. And I had a volunteer plant come up that I'm guessing is a cucumber right here. I don't think it's a squash. Initially it was hard to tell, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be a cucumber. I'm a little worried because this trellis was not built for a cucumber or squash for that matter. So we'll see how well it holds up under the weight of that plant. I've started moving the berries over here. This is going to be where my blueberries will be. So there's some assorted other berries that are still in pots that need to be moved on. But I needed to get these plants into a place where they'd get watered with the drip system while I was gone for a few days, because we've entered our very hot season here in Southern California. So there are things here that will not remain here, but they're at least being kept alive by the drip system. So coming around to this side, I do have a couple of cucumbers that I did plant with intention toward the back, and these are my lemon cucumbers, and I'm hoping they're going to be getting enough sun here. I do have shade cloth here that I put up when we were about to enter a triple-digit weekend, and my plan is not to keep these shaded. I do want the cucumbers to grow up onto the trellises, and then they can provide some shade for other things that I've got here. I know the beans can tolerate some shade, but I've also got some chard down there, and I know that it's not, it doesn't do super well with really intense heat, at least not for me. And I would like to plant, if there's room, I'd like to plant some greens down here. So the shade from the cucumbers growing up along this trellis would be great. So back here, I guess this is my largest sunflower. I was looking at some videos of, or excuse me, photos from last year. And by this time last year, I had some huge sunflowers. So I'm very delayed on sunflowers. The corn's doing pretty well though. I had planned to do a succession planting of corn just to the right of these stalks, but I'm thinking that it's a little too crowded in here, and so I'm coming up with a different plan. I think what I'm going to do instead is plant corn stalks in that bed over there. And originally I had planned to plant lettuces and spinaches down there, but I think corn's going to be a better choice anyway, because that area is really not going to get too much shade. Well, it'll get a little shade as that squash gets a little bigger. But we've got a couple of different cucumbers growing in here as well. I'm going to have to put names on screen because I can't remember just to look at them, and I don't want to be bending over and trying to read the markers. So there's at least 4 here, 2 for the front trellis and then 2 more for the back trellis. And same thing on this side, I've got 2 on each of these trellises. I know the one in front is Market More. That's the only one that I happen to just know by heart. I feel like the one in front here is an Armenian, a white Armenian. So I had planted Mexican gherkins, cucamelons down here in the front, but they've never germinated. And I did plant a couple of additional seeds, still no germination. So I don't know if they were viable. I did receive those seeds in a swap. So possibly they were no good. I'm gonna have to see if I've got enough time to order seeds and replant. I may just have to not have that this year. Disappointing, but what are you gonna do? And then here we've got my not strawberry, I always want to do that, my raspberry shortcake plants. They're patio plants, dwarf plants. And what's going to happen here is they're both going to be moving out of these pots. I have a couple of very large plastic pots that I think that will give them more room for growing. And so to the right is a blueberry, and what's going to happen is the pot there in the middle, once it's vacated of its raspberry plant, will be taking on another largish blueberry plant. So I do have a plan and a method to my madness. I don't think there's really anything much more going on in this planter, this raised bed. There are some bush beans, and then of course the kale's been around forever, and it's still doing pretty good, except that it's getting chewed on a little bit, but I'm okay with that. I've got plenty. I don't mind sharing. I have a red-veined sorrel in there that needs to go on the ground. For the longest time, I thought it was Malabar spinach, and I had it marked that way. I had grown it from seed, and then I looked at it as it got bigger, and I'm like, that is not Malabar spinach. I'd never grown either of them, so I was a little bit ignorant of what they look like. So here are my hot peppers, and they seem to be doing pretty well. I'm gonna have to cut back one or two of the leaves from this squash because they're shading the peppers, and I don't think the peppers actually really need to be shaded. This was a squash that I bought at a box store, Lowe's or Home Depot, because I was getting impatient. I had sown some seeds of zucchini, and they didn't come up. So I bought this plant, and doggone it if it turned out to not be a zucchini. I don't know if you can see in there. I'm gonna try to zoom in. It's actually a yellow squash. So after it started growing a bit, the seeds that I had planted or sown germinated. And I know those to be zucchini, so I've moved one of them back there in the corner. I don't know if it's gonna do okay back there. That's a little bit close to this other squash. But there was a second one, and I've planted that out in another bed that you'll see in a minute. I was worried they weren't gonna survive because I moved them when it was, well, it's been hot no matter what. I mean, it varies, but you know, we haven't really gone much lower than the high 80s. So thankfully they both found their sea legs, and they're both doing well, both of the zucchini plants. So I'm gonna come over to the new beds. So this one has a couple of squash in it too. Both of these down here are scalloped squashes, patty pans. One's green, and the other one I want to say is either yellow or white. And then I had gotten a little refrigerator-sized watermelon plant from one of my gardening class meetups, and it hasn't ever died since it's been planted here, but it never looks like it's doing very well. I'm going to give it some hand watering today, and I'm hoping that it's looking a little greener at the top. I'm hoping it's going to perk up at some point here. This is I'm not going to remember. I think it's indigo basil that I also got at a plant meetup, and I cut it back because I want it to be bushier. And then I've added a few tomatoes. My initial plan didn't include tomatoes in this bed, but I ran out of room because I, of course, grew way too many tomatoes. I tend to do that. Over here I've got Denali squash, which I've never grown before. There are two because I wanted to make sure one at least would germinate. So I'm going to be cutting one of these back, more than likely the smaller one in front. And then I've got some basil that it was grown from seed, and it was not doing too well in the little pots it was in, and it's trying to find its comfort zone here, and it looks like it's going to perk up. And then Anaheim pepper here. So I'm not naming any of these tomatoes just because, again, I don't want to be bending down trying to see the labels. I've got a couple of calendula down there, and then I'm going to round the corner here. I've planted a sugar baby watermelon here, so that's come up. I was happy to see that. And then I have cinnamon basil tucked in the corner there, and a few more tomatoes. I think over here I was trying to keep mostly the cherries and maybe the more of the pear tomatoes. I planted ground cherries. I should say I sowed seed for ground cherries, and I still don't see any action there. I've got a couple more tomatoes here. This is one of those zucchinis that I moved. And then some basil here, and there's a calendula there on the left. And some marigolds, I didn't mention those. I also sowed some sunflower seeds, and I'm not sure if that's what's coming up. There's some little, get over on this side of this pole, some little tiny seedlings, and they'll need to get a little bit bigger before I can identify whether those are just weed seeds that came up or whether they're actually sunflowers. My lavender seems to be doing pretty well. This is one of the plants that didn't get watered while I was out of town, but it's a hardy heat lover, so it did okay. I'm going to add that to the drip. It has a line. I just didn't do that before I left on my trip. My strawberries need to be moved, but they're all set up to be added to the drip as well. And then I have to decide if I'm going to add these guys to the drip. I feel like I need to, because I will easily forget them, I'm sure, because they're just an island here. But anyway, what I have here is a variegated basil, and then some thyme. I believe that's English thyme. And I've got lemon balm and chives. And then turning around here, I've got some potatoes that I have yet to dig up. This is my first year growing potatoes, and I'm pretty sure I did it all wrong. You can see that the soil line is pretty low in this grow bag, and I just got so busy I didn't stay on top of adding soil as the plant grew up, so there probably aren't very many potatoes in there. I don't know what's going on with this tomato plant here. It's looking kind of limp, so maybe it needs a little extra water. The drip did run this morning. I may have to adjust the length that it's running. I've got it right now set for 90 minutes every other day. It's pretty hot today though, so maybe that's not quite enough. I'm not sure. I'm going to play that by ear. It's a lot less than I used to run it because I'm trying to be a little bit more responsible with my water use. But again, it's going to be experimentation until I get that down. I planted some Kajari melon. I wanted to grow Kajari melon as well as cucamelons so badly this year, and someone sweetly shared some seeds with me through the Seed Wish Wednesday that's hosted on Instagram, and I'm so excited to have those in the ground. And then I have more tomatoes over here. I went around and pruned most of my tomatoes today and tried to remove all the suckers I could see. I still have a few bare spots that don't have tomatoes in them yet because the tomatoes were too small, and I didn't want to put them in the ground while I was on my trip. It made more sense to move them into the central location where my husband was going to water nursery plants for me, because if they sat here they wouldn't get any water. Even though the drip's attached, they wouldn't be on the drip. I have some lemon balm that I've been cutting back a stalk at a time every week just because I didn't want to chop it all back at once. But it's in a pot with some dahlias. These are yellow dahlias. I don't know if that's a good mix. They're both new plants to me, but I do need to cut these lemon balm plants back a little more. It looks like they're filling out a lot more. I'm getting a lot of little side growth. And so I know the flowers were really pretty. They came up unexpectedly, and while I was in the middle of other things where I couldn't even enjoy them because they were back in the South 40 where the nursery plants are. So I basically just saw them on occasion when I was out there watering. But I would like to see them. If they'll bloom again, I'd like to see those blooms and enjoy them. So this is pretty much it. The garden is double the size of what it used to be, and yet it still feels like I don't have enough room to plant everything I'd like to. My dwarf fruit trees are all doing okay. I'm not really liking how yellow the citrus trees are, so I'm going to do some research on that. The tree in the middle of in this row here in the middle is an almond tree, and it has no foliage on it, no buds. I'm pretty sure it's dead. So that's a sad loss. I did get it on clearance, but still, I think I'm to blame for that one not prospering, because I took a while. It was a bare root, and I took a while to get it out of its bag and in the ground. And these two, the fig and the peach, are still doing great. I'm going to take a little panoramic view of the gravel patio. My husband has done a great job. While I was gone, he hauled in a lot more gravel, and we're pretty much done adding gravel here. He came up with this lovely edging for the pepper volunteers. He chopped back all the most of the volunteers or suckers that were growing at the base and put the bricks down, which look wonderful. And then I had a bunch of broken concrete that we always had planned to put in the ground here, and he started setting that in. I'm not sure, it's a little further, spaced a little further apart than I thought it would be. I wasn't around when it got placed, so either I'll monkey with it and kind of adjust the placement. I'm not sure if he's used all that we had obtained, so possibly this is all we have. But if not, I'm going to try to insert some more, or possibly intersperse some bricks and other pavers. He's added these square ones here because he saw them in my pile of supplies, and I'm not really that fond of these here, but I guess they're going to sit here for a minute because I don't have time to deal with them. I know he's concerned about having something sturdy enough so that our chairs don't sink once we move our patio table over here. So I agree with that. I just need to come up with a solution that maybe I like a little better. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll learn to live with this and I'll like it. I just feel like it looks a little bit, I don't know, too uniform and too out of place for what I had envisioned. But I'm really loving the view back here. The way the trees all got trimmed, the way that the neat finish of the gravel is, it's just no comparison to what this area used to look like. I don't know if I have a comparable photo or video that I can insert here to give you just a good feel of what it looked like, but this is such an improvement. And then we'll soon be bringing in the furniture and putting the chandelier that we plan to hang from this pepper volunteer tree assortment in place. I've got the battery operated candles that I had always intended to get. I ordered those from Amazon, and so it's finally coming together. I do have a couple of pots flanking the arched entry passageway. I'm still debating what will go in these pots. I'm inclined to put something that's edible. I've been thinking about putting some more sunset runner beans because I love the blossoms so much. But I also have a hyacinth bean, a couple of seeds that someone shared with me in a swap, and they're so pretty. I don't believe those are edible. It might not even be a hyacinth now that I think about it, but it's a blue flower, and so perhaps I'll grow those there just for the beauty of it. But I'm gonna go ahead and walk out so you can see it from the other side. So here's the view looking north. The shade cloth is not the most attractive thing. It looks better than what I had in place last year, but of course I'd prefer to not have it. Unfortunately, not having shade cloth is asking for trouble here because it's just too hot. This is all direct sun. The plants would react badly if they didn't get a little break from our sun. You know, they get a lot of sun even with the shade cloth. You can see that the back of this bed is in sun right now, but as the sun moves, it will, you know, provide shade to the plants for a while. All the plants will get a little bit of shade. I'm not sure if I've shown this before. This is a bench that I got through OfferUp for $25, which I thought was great. I need to paint it. It's going to go back at the south end of the property under the big pepper tree. I'm debating whether to paint these wrought iron chairs and the fire pit. I do have cushions for these, but right now I'm just not putting them in place. I guess if we get to a point where we're a little bit more caught up and we're able to sit and enjoy this area, that will be the thing to prompt me to go ahead and do that. Ah, I see some more of our concrete back there. And then just to make the job easier for my husband, I moved almost every loose pot that wasn't in the drip area back here so that he could water everything. So I need to start moving some of these things out again. I was debating over whether to paint this chandelier. I really like it as is, but I also think it could benefit from a lick of paint. I did a poll on Instagram and I got a lot of responses, including some very colorful ideas, but I feel like I want to stick with a more classic look. So I'm inclined to either leave it as is, painted to black again, or the only one of the choices that was suggested that I really hadn't thought about, that I'm considering, is to go white or beige or cream, because that might look good. I'm concerned that it should, you know, kind of blend well with what's already over there. And just to remind you, that's what's already over there. And most everything in the yard is in a more neutral palette, so I don't want to start really bringing in whimsical colors because that would be the only thing that looked like that. But I also have to consider that our patio table and the chairs are a bit of a, I guess that's an 80s or 90s verdigris. I mean, it's not really, but I don't know what else to call that. It's kind of a bluish, slightly green blue. So still on the fence about the paint job on the chandelier, and I don't have time to do it in the next few days, so I'm going to be thinking about that. These two tall trellises, I was intending to put the taller of the two into the middle of the walkway that goes into the gravel area, and I may still do that, but I'm concerned that it may start looking too crowded over there. Once the table's in place and so forth, I'll have a better idea, and then again maybe I'll just use the smaller one for that. I have to figure that out. Well, I went ahead and removed the shade cloth from this trellis that connects the first and second beds. The beans are getting pretty high, and I think that that'll give them a better opportunity to cover that trellis. I like the way it looks so much better without shade cloth on it. Isn't that lovely? So that's it for today. Thank you for checking me out. I really appreciate you stopping by. If you like this video, could you please give me a thumbs up? That helps YouTube know to promote my video to others who might be interested in viewing it. If you'd like to see more videos from me, you can subscribe. And there's a little bell that you can click on, and that'll let you know when I've posted new videos. And speaking of new videos, I do this backyard tour once a month. So I'll be doing it again in August. I also do a tour of my front yard once a month. So that'll happen in about 2 weeks in the middle of July, and other videos in between. I try to post at least a video a week. So thanks again for checking me out. If you have any comments, I sure hope you'll leave them below, and I'll see you next time.